This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Don't forget to view our spoiler-free companion video on our Half Past Podcast channel on YouTube. The Half Past Podcast. This is episode 56, the movie review of John Wick, Chapter 2. We'll also be discussing the Logan trailer. I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot, Ian Jones.
How you doing, buddy?
I am doing all right. I've been, moving, and it's just...
You have been.
And it's just been an interesting experience, is what I will say.
I helped you one weekend.
You did. You came up here, you met Jackie, my girl, so... That was fun.
Yeah. I had a good time. As far as moving goes, that was probably the best time I've ever had.
Yeah.
And, the key to it is making sure that you buy the people helping you, pizza
and beer.
And beer.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I was just like, I don't care about today. Great. This was a great day. What a great time to be alive. Pizza and beer.
Oh yeah, it was great.
The one thing I wanted to say before we get into this trailer, is that I got carded to see this movie, and I was not happy about it.
You got carded to see this movie?
Yeah. The guy's like, I'm sorry if you look 25 or 30. I'm like, I don't look 25 and I don't look 30. So you may need to update those Coke bottles, sucker. I wasn't even flattered or amused by it.
Man, it's funny that you say that, because there is an instance where, I went to go see this with Jackie, right? And she made a comment, and it's a comment my old roommate, Brazy, used to say. And he would just be like, why is it every time I go to these rated R movies, there's always these little kids there? And I swear, probably 3 or 4 seats down, there was these little kids that were just watching this incredibly violent movie. And it was just such the crazy thing to see. But it does happen every time I go see a rated R movie. I'm pretty sure when we saw Hardcore Henry, I'm pretty sure the same thing happened. It's amazing how often that happens. It's so crazy. And it's one of those things where it's I'm okay with it to a point, but there are certain scenes in this movie that's just way over the top that you're So it's just such a weird thing.
I mean, the one thing I would say is, and we can get into it, but because of the way that it was filmed, maybe things didn't look as bad as they could have.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Whereas definitely in Hardcore Henry, there were some scenes where...
I mean, the thing about Hardcore Henry, the intro was the worst. Was the intro credits. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It was just terrible, because it was all slow motion.
Yeah, and if you were squeamish at all, you're not making it through that title sequence.
No.
At the beginning.
No way. All right, you ready to talk about this Logan trailer then?
I am. Let's do it.
All right, so the first thing I want to say is that this is definitely, I have not had as much experience with Wolverine as I probably should have, but this is definitely a different take.
No, hang on a second. Okay, all right.
What?
Just go back and explain that for everyone.
What do you mean?
In case people don't know you.
What? How I just
because you're a short guy, you're good looking, but you've got some quality rage at times, and so those two things should line up. But you don't like Wolverine for whatever reason.
Well, you're not wrong. So I guess there's that. And I remember when people used to complain at the beginning with having Hugh Jackman play him, because Hugh Jackman is not a small man at all. He isn't. He's 6'3" or something like that. He's a foot taller than he should be. as Wolverine, but he's so good at it that nobody cares. Like, that passed after the first movie. You know, they were just like, it's good. We're good. But what I was going to say is that this is like a different take on Wolverine. And I don't know, I meant to ask you, is this a story that I just don't know about? Or is this completely new?
It is going to be based off of what they've done in the comic books. Obviously, at some point, it's going to turn into a fiery car wreck, like with the other movies.
Yeah.
But part of the Wolverine timeline is that he's been around for a long time. His healing factor has given him a much longer life.
Yeah, and so he's actually way older than people think he is. Yeah.
And so we're going to get our first dose of old man Logan, who has started to lose his healing factor. And the movie features pretty much the young up-and-coming, the female Wolverine, X-23, who, because Marvel and DC have to be politically correct and make these changes to all their characters, instead of just making new characters, they have to change the established ones.
Yeah.
X-23 is potentially a character they could use moving forward, but Wolverine is definitely one of those evergreen characters.
Yes,
you can use him in X-Men movies. You could use him in Marvel movies once Fox gets their head out of their ass and goes joint with the licensing with Marvel.
Yeah.
But potentially Wolverine could be down the road in Marvel movies. He could be in Marvel studio movies, and he should be.
Yes.
He could be in X-Men movies, and he could be in standalone movies.
Yes.
And that is a character that is completely unique. Maybe Spider-Man's the only one who has that. Spider-Man and Iron Man have that sort of play.
Yeah.
There are always going to be Spider-Man movies. There's always going to be Iron Man movies.
Yeah.
There's always going to be Wolverine movies, and we'll be old men talking about who was better. Who was the better Iron Man? Who was the better,
Wolverine,
Spider-Man? Just like with James Bond, there will be those, that many movies, because you can keep going with the characters really without needing to reboot. But Hollywood loves their reboots.
Yes, they do. You would hope that would quiet down a little bit, but it's one of those things where it is a character I would love to see in the future. So it is what it is. I was also wondering if I remember. So, like, what is the background to X-23? Because I was sort of aware of that, but I'm not like. So is that just another character from the same program as Wolverine, right?
I would assume so, but right? I don't. But I think it's a newer version.
Yeah,
Deadpool is one of those characters. One of the more,
he's supposed to be a part of that program.
Yeah, he was one of the ones who failed. Sabretooth was. I mean, they've got a lot of characters related to this program that they haven't even gotten. Yeah, the Weapon X program that they haven't even touched on yet, and other ones that Fox has just completely mishandled on their own. And of course, the Deadpool movie was a better step, in the right direction, but they had to make that mistake with Wolverine Origins,
yes, they did. Which is
and everything got straightened out there for
they did.
Deadpool.
Yep. So that's good to hear, though, because I think I don't know. It's I hope that they have learned from Deadpool, and that if they're going to change these characters around, at least keep the essence, to try to make them a little bit closer to how we know them to be, especially if you're using the same names or whatever.
I mean, I think how they've done Wolverine, I think the character, and because of what Hugh Jackman brings, I think there's a lot of stuff I like about his performance.
Oh yeah,
but I think the writing isn't there and hasn't been on any of the films.
No, it hasn't.
This trailer to me looks very one note, and really all the Wolverine movies have, but it really looks overblown.
It does.
And it looks like it only takes place in maybe a few environments, which has me concerned.
Yes.
You know, they spent a year, for the last one, they spent a year in Japan. And they somehow managed to make Japan look very uninteresting and mute the hell out of, cherry blossoms and all that wonderful architecture.
Yeah, somehow they managed to do that.
I worry that there aren't going to be enough surprises in this just based on the different cuts of the movie we've seen.
Yeah,
and I hope that I'm pleasantly surprised, but I mean it seems very one note.
Yeah. You're not wrong, and I hope there's a lot more to it, because I'm pretty sure the trailer, I got the Red Band trailer during John Wick, and I'm really hoping that there's more to it than what we have seen in this trailer. So, and from what I know, this is like the latest trailer. And the movie comes out soon, so I don't know if they're going to come out with another one that shows more info or whatever. But so we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, it just doesn't look very high. It just doesn't look like a big budget film. Not that Wolverine necessarily needs to be, depending on the kind of story you're trying to tell. So I don't want to go in thinking negatively about it. But when you have so many films, prior, and I think everyone's wondering, well, when the hell is this time? When is this time period supposed to take place? Because
I know, right?
All of this was supposed to be undone. I mean, this looks like it's set back in the Brett Ratner universe, which is really a scary thing.
Which is a really scary thing, because I thought we erased the.
we did away with this, right?
Which was one of the
movie to erase.
To erase the bad one, which is one of the reasons why that movie's so good. Like, Days of Future Past just like fixes everything, and so I sure hope that.
So how are all the mutants gone again?
Right.
Because it's just going to end up being one giant movie that doesn't matter.
I guess. I have no idea.
Because it's part of a totally different timeline. I mean, we probably talked about. we probably thought more about this trailer than the actual studio put into making the film.
Probably. So on that note, let's just go ahead and take a break, and then we'll get into John Wick Chapter 2.
Put on our fancy clothes and talk about John Wick 2.
Yeah, all right.
My fancy hat.
After returning to the criminal underworld to repay a debt, John Wick discovers that a large bounty has been put on his life. This movie is directed by Chad Stahelski, and he actually co-directed the first movie. So it was nice to have him back in here to kind of...
Well, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I'm proud of him.
Right? It's pretty nice to see him come in and take a shot at this, and I believe his main purpose was to help with the action sequences, because he's also a stuntman. He was a stuntman for years. And so I was reading about him, and I had forgotten that I had read this last time, and that he had doubled for Brandon Lee after the accident.
Oh, on the Crow. Yeah, all right.
So he was his double in that movie. So it's just such a weird thing. So he was a stuntman, and he had been doing it for years. So he just took his hand at directing, and this is John Wick is the only thing he's done as a director. He co-directed John Wick, and he directed this one. So it's actually pretty cool. This movie starring, of course, Keanu Reeves as John Wick. He has been in Bill and Ted's Point Break and the Matrix series.
Hey everyone, what's the name of that bad Keanu Reeves movie?
Oh man, I remember when we were working at the event production company, and you because your office, since you were the creative director, your office was right outside the rest of creative services, and so you You yelled across the hallway, "Hey, what was the name of that bad Keanu Reeves movie?" And then everybody in creative services was just laughing because we just didn't know which one you're talking about.
Johnny Mnemonic was what I was trying to come up with. I had a producer standing in my office who was talking about some production work for something, and for some reason it reminded me of Johnny Mnemonic.
Johnny Mnemonic is not
I just
good.
couldn't come up with the name.
That's great.
You know, I feel like, though, that 80s era, you kind of get a pass on those movies.
That's terrible.
That's a debate for a different time. The music and they just all had a very familiar stench to it.
Oh yeah. Riccardo Scamarcio as Santino D'Antonio, who has been in a bunch of Italian roles in a movie called Texas, which I have no idea what the heck that is, but that's the only thing that he's done. I guess he's an Italian actor, so he's been in just like a bunch of those that none of us have seen. Ian McShane is Winston. It's really nice to see him come back for this role.
It is. Yeah.
He was in Kung Fu Panda, Blackbeard, in the Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides, and he was also in like a few episodes of Game of Thrones.
The best voice in the business, as far as I'm concerned.
He is great. He's really good, and it was nice to see him as Tai Lung in Kung Fu Panda. You know,
yeah,
it's good stuff. Ruby Rose is Aries. Now she is a model for the most part.
Yes.
But she's gotten into acting.
Mm-hmm.
So she's in Orange is the New Black, and she was also in the XXX Return of the Xander Cage movie that we didn't get a chance to get to.
We failed to go and see, which I think we would have had some fun picking apart.
Oh yeah, that would have been a fun movie.
I will see it at some point, but it just...
I'm sure I will too.
Didn't work out. Though, you know, I just wanted to add something about Ruby Rose because my girlfriend said something that I thought was hilarious and on the nose with this actress.
Yeah. Okay.
Model. And that was Ruby Rose makes me sexually confused. And I thought that was so funny and true. I was like, well, you know, I'm right there with you.
She
just does somehow.
She is really attractive. And, you know, when we left the movie, Jackie and I, we were talking about her, and she's like really attractive, but she's also has this androgynous look to her.
Yes. Right.
So it's really weird. So I'm with you on that, and with your girlfriend. It's just like it's just kind of like, man, you know. I'm not really big on Ruby Rose, but she's obviously really attractive. So it's just like such a weird thing. Next up we have here is Common as Cassian, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say that I really liked this character in this movie.
Yeah, well, you know, it's Common again,
right?
It's usually pretty damn solid,
right? It's just such a weird thing with him, and he's mostly known as a rapper, but he's also was in Smoking Aces and American Gangster, and he's been showing up in a lot of movies lately. And so it's kind of interesting to see him keep going. I don't know why he's so solid, but you're right, he just is. Claudia Gerini as Gianna D'Antonio, and she's another Italian actress, so I just had no movies for her. They're all like Italian movies.
I mean, it's kind of cool that they went and got some Italian acters.
Right? I really enjoyed that.
Do these parts.
I definitely enjoyed them doing that. That was really interesting. It also, the other thing about it is because they got these Italian actresses, it was so interesting to see how, like, seeing John Wick be more on an international level, right, in this movie. Because he was, like, speaking, I mean, before he was speaking to the Russians, but he was also speaking to these guys, too. So it's like, he's just noting that he knew a bunch of other languages and stuff was actually a pretty cool aspect of this movie. Lance Reddick as Sharon. This guy shows up everywhere. This is one of those actors where you've seen him in things and you have no idea who he is.
Probably can't name him, but he's in an incredible show. I don't know if you get Amazon Prime.
Oh yeah, of course.
But so for people missing like NYPD Blue, or I'm sorry, not NYPD Blue. What's the
Law and Order? Law and Order.
Bosch on Amazon Prime kicks that show in the teeth.
Bosch is just really good.
Have you seen both seasons?
I've seen both seasons of Bosch, and I want another season. So
they are working on it. It looks like they're gonna release it the same time next year.
Oh, okay. That's great.
But he plays one of the big characters, and it's based off the Michael Connelly novels, and they cast the right actors.
They did.
They really did. For all the parts. It's amazing how well everything syncs up.
Oh yeah, I mean, like personally, two of my favorite shows on Amazon Prime is easily Bosch and Man in the High Castle. Like those are my favorite ones that they have done, and those are all fairly recent. They both only have 2 seasons, so it seems like they're starting to get better writers and maybe some more pull from these actors to find these actors and everything, because some of their other stuff is like it just like lasts a season and it just doesn't survive. But these are just like they're like hitting the right notes, so it's pretty good. But he was in The Wire, Fringe, and Oz. He's mainly does like TV shows. The last one I have here is Lawrence Fishburne as the Bowery King. He is in Event Horizon, The Matrix, and Assault on Precinct 13, which I have not seen. Have you seen that movie?
Why would
right?
Yes, I have. But why, of all the movies he's done, why would you list one that you haven't seen? Just so we can have this conversation.
Just so we can have this conversation right now.
It was okay. It's a very unique idea, but I didn't think.
Yes, it looked like a unique idea.
I mean, yeah.
It is what it is. Lawrence Fishburne
it has its moments.
Lawrence Fishburne has just been like showing up in a bunch of movies. And I swear he is getting crazier and crazier. Am I the only one that, am I the
Are his eyes getting farther apart? Because that's usually what happens with crazy people.
It's just such a weird thing. Like, all the later roles I've seen him in. Because, like, when you watch Predators, and he shows up and he's just nuts. And even in this one, he's just a little crazy. But you're just like, what is going on with Lawrence Fishburne? It's such a weird thing, but it is what it is. That's all the characters I have for this. So, you got anything else? No. Got any other comments over there?
Let's roll into it.
All right. Let's go ahead and take another break.
Any other little comments over there? Not when you say it like that with your angry voice. I don't. All right, so play some music.
All right, let's take a little break, and we'll come back and get into the best part, the Quirks and Likes. All right, Jones, now we're back for our Quirks and Likes section. Let's start with my quirks. Now, I don't have a lot of quirks in this movie, because I actually enjoyed this movie, but there's one that you could probably agree with me, and I think of you every time when it happens, but the keys in the visor.
Keys in the visor. God, so lazy.
I can't.
So lazy.
I can't stand how often that shows up in movies. It's like it's turned into just a trope. It's just something people toss in.
Had this not been John Wick, I would have probably left the damn thing. Like, if we weren't reviewing this movie, one of the very first things you see is car keys in the visor.
Car keys in the visor. See, it's the most annoying thing, and it happens in so many movies. And it's just like, why does that keep happening? I don't understand it. It's like, I mean, you can go so far back to see how many movies have done that, and it's just, it's turned into like the Wilhelm scream, It's just something people toss in because
yes,
it just is what it is. So I don't know.
It solves so many issues, but
yes,
at the same time, no.
Yeah,
gotta stop doing it.
Yep, it is the biggest pain that I've seen in movies. It just really annoys me every time I see it. Even in the movie theater, I just scoffed. I was just like, ugh. My second quirk here is, and this is one of the things that I really enjoyed about the first John Wick movie, was Keanu Reeves' acting. And we know that we discussed this in the other one, which I will release soon. But here's the thing. I think he talks too much in this movie, because the thing about Keanu Reeves is he sounds like a surfer dude, like every time, and he like tries to not have that in this movie, but it still kind of comes off that way. And so it's such a shame, because throughout the entire time, and we mentioned this in the first John Wick movie, which is he does a lot of acting without talking, and he does that really well. There's just a lot of scenes in this where he's just like, when he's looking at the phone and thinking about his wife and dealing with the fact that he has to get back in here, and he gets pulled back in. He has all these emotional moments that are really good, but any of them that have to do with him talking really like ruins it. And specifically, one of the ones that I really didn't like was his delivery of "I will kill them all" towards the end of the movie. It's just kind of like things like that sort of delivery is just like, damn, I just wish he just had a little more, like a little better like acting chops in this movie for that.
Yeah, for those kinds of scenes.
For those really, kinds of scenes.
Yeah, it's really jarring, and I sort of noticed this the first time when Santino showed up at his house and they both sit down.
Yes, that scene
have that
too.
Cup of coffee.
Yes,
there's really, I think,
there's a difference in acting
right?
ability. Right?
Yeah,
yes,
right.
There's a difference in acting ability from this Santino character than you have from Keanu Reeves' character. I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I was writing this, I was trying to figure out what the other scene was. That was the other scene that was really jarring, because it was such a stark contrast between this guy's acting ability and Keanu Reeves. And it's just because they're cutting back and forth, and it's a very tense scene. It's like the ball gets dropped on Keanu Reeves' end, and on like, what the heck is this actor's name? Ricardo Scamarcio or something like that. On his end, he actually is pulling a lot of weight. And so it's really disappointing in this movie for just that. And I think the problem is in this one, they gave him more emotional scenes. In the first one, They kind of shied away from it. So that's one of the things that like really hurt me for this movie. The last thing I have, and I'm hoping this gets fixed. The last thing I have, and then we'll get into you, is that he doesn't name the dog.
Yeah. This is...
there's a lot of problems I have with naming the dog. I was hoping it would happen at the end of the movie, because the character would progress through the movie, and so now he's like trying to settle down and he names the dog. That's what I was assuming was going to happen. But because the way this movie ends, there's obviously going to be a John Wick Chapter 3. And he's just like on the run at the end of the movie. So I'm hoping this is the same concept of like the first John Wick, where there's stuff that's open that isn't answered or isn't completed, but it is completed in this one. So I'm hoping the same thing happens in how he doesn't name the damn dog. And that's what I got, man.
Yeah, I had a huge issue with that. The only thing that I could think of is that he didn't want to share the name of the dog, because personally, I have a real issue with that, other than the dog probably thought his name was Boy.
Right.
So yeah, that really bothered me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I started thinking about, the fact that people kept asking him what the name of the dog was.
Yes.
That maybe he was holding something back.
Maybe.
He wanted to make people think that maybe he didn't care as much about the animal as he did, because he lost the last one.
Maybe.
I don't know. That was kind of what I was thinking about. But yeah, it's an annoying little thing to.
Yeah.
I think it makes his character less likable.
Right.
quite frankly.
Yes.
So I think the big quirk that I had was how the movie started. I think it's an effective thing when you're introducing a character by having another character narrate why you should fear them or why they're important for some reason.
Yes.
Like that's very common in storytelling to introduce the main character, and so there were parts of the action scene that I liked, because the biggest quirk I thought about the first John Wick movie was that he never got his car back. So
that is exactly the reason why that is one of my likes in this movie.
Gotcha.
And this is exactly the thing I was talking about when I said there's certain things that gets completed in this movie that doesn't get completed in the first one, because both of us, when we did this like test podcast on John Wick, we both were talking about it, and like we were just like, man, does he get the car back? Like he never got the car back.
Yeah.
And so we were just like super curious about like what happened to the car. And in this movie, he gets it back, and I thought that was great. The only thing I can say about that is, I think this is a product of how John Wick, the first movie, performed. It did well, but it didn't do really well, because it was like a sleeper hit. It was like really, really well done movie for something that should have just been a throwaway action movie, which it kind of is. It actually has a lot of plot and story and character development in the movie, enough to where it's way better than some of the other action movies. But not a lot of people went to go see it. So the only thing I can think of is that they chose to kind of complete the storyline of the first movie and the second movie to help people who saw the first one. But the scenes where he's explaining things is for people who did not see the first one, which is
correct.
A lot of people. And I think that's a product of that.
So that wasn't really I guess the quirk that I had, the narration. I thought that was fine. The big issue I had is that he's staying in the shadows, he's using military precision.
Yes.
For some reason he's not using his guns though. And I thought that was a really huge departure from not only from the first movie, but from how the rest of this movie finishes.
Yes, and it's interesting that you say that, because I saw that too. Because we had both seen the first movie, it is a departure, and it was really weird. And I was actually, because one of the things we talked about before was how many people he shoots in the freaking head in the first movie. So like, you kind of want. It's so weird to see him not using his gun in this instance. And I remember the whole time during that sequence that was happening, I was curious. I was like, is he going to pull out his gun eventually? And he does when he has to fight that really giant guy. And he just like takes him out. So it's just kind of a weird thing.
But then he kneecaps him. So
yeah,
to me, it didn't. To me, that's where the opening sequence starts having issues, because he isn't fighting the same way.
No.
And the other thing is that he intentionally wrecks his car.
Yes,
getting out of there to make a point, and I had a huge problem with that. You know?
Yeah. And that's kind of the reaction you get from John Leguizamo's character, where you get Aurelio, and he basically says, I thought you loved this car. Because like he destroys the heck out of the car, which if somebody runs into him, which happens during that sequence, there is a couple scenes where he like purposely wrecks the car.
Yes.
Like he opens the door so that the motorcycle hits it and takes off the door. And then he also does this weird backing into somebody just to do it, rather than trying to get the car out of there. So yeah, it was a really weird thing for him to do.
Or just taking everyone out anyway, which is what he would have done in the first movie.
Yes.
So I mean, I guess my biggest issue was that although there were parts of the opening sequence that I liked.
Oh yeah, I love all the cutbacks to the uncle of
to whatever that actor's name is.
I don't remember, but he played Greyjoy in Game of Thrones.
He, this is just another good actor that they have kind of shoved into this movie.
Yes.
for, just a few minutes. But yeah, I thought it didn't. Knowing how important the car was, I had a huge issue with
the way
how he took care of it,
destroyed
getting
the car.
it out of there.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I had was that he broke a rule at the Continental that you're not allowed to do.
Yes.
I don't understand, other than the fact that Ian McShane's character Winston maybe had more of a history with John Wick.
Yeah, which you kind of get a hint that they do have more of a history, because it's not
he's
explained.
Looking out for him a little bit. He
gives
him
just
a marker.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, which means that John Wick could make a deal and maybe get some help with someone.
Yep.
But the penalty for killing someone at the Continental is death. So and that was pretty clear in the first movie. And I guess I
don't remember that in the first movie.
Adriana, I think Grandi, is that actress's name?
Oh, you're right. They kill her.
They kill her. They revoke her membership, and he steps aside, and 4 people step up and shoot
4
her.
people on all 4 corners shoot her in the head all at once. Yeah. That does happen.
So, and
it's because she attempted to kill somebody in the Continental.
She tried to kill him on the premises.
On the premises, yeah.
So I guess that was just the one inconsistency, which I can kind of look past if they've got
history,
a bit of a history.
Yeah, which it seems like they do. It's just not explained. Again, that might be something that's explained in the next movie. It's just kind of left open.
I thought that I was kind of sad to see that maybe Ruby Rose and Ares don't, maybe she doesn't survive, and maybe Cassian don't survive.
Right?
We just don't know for sure. And I thought that they came up with really cool characters. I thought maybe visually there was something about Ares that was cool just because she didn't speak. And
she was mute.
Through sign language.
Yeah, she was mute. So that was a really cool aspect to that character, and we'll probably get into the likes, I would think.
Yeah. All right. So
you got anything else?
That's it for me as far as quirks. There were really just a few things.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just keep on with this then. So one of my likes is the character that Common is. He's just a really cool character, and even just Ruby Rose's character Ares is also a really cool character, and I really enjoy the fact that when you get Common, he stabs Common, but he specifically keeps him alive, and he stabs him and basically tells him if he pulls it out, he's gonna bleed to death and die. So he let him stay alive, and even just I just really enjoyed the mutual respect that these two characters had, where they obviously have some history from behind, these two characters together. And it's just such an interesting thing with this character. And it's to the point where maybe they'll get some help. Maybe John Wick will get some help in the next movie from a character like Common because he kept them alive. The same thing for Ruby Rose's character, but I'm not sure. It's she has kind of an ambiguous death. You're not sure if she died or not. She just kind of says, "I'll be seeing you." And he goes, "Sure," but she kind of just pauses, and you're just not sure if she's still alive or if she's dead. You don't know. At least that's how I looked at it. I was unsure.
Right, yeah. You
just don't know. So again, this character might help him in the next movie also, which would be kind of an interesting thing, because I think the problem is it seems like you want Common to help him out towards the end of this movie, because really it's the jerk who set a hit out on his sister that caused her death, not necessarily John Wick. He didn't have a choice, and he explains that to him. And it almost seems like maybe there's a way out of that or not, because in the movie your Common specifically says you killed my ward, and eye for an eye. You know how it is. And so it's kind of one of those sort of things where it almost seems like he's obligated to have to take out John Wick. But maybe that changes in the next movie or whatever happens, because I kind of want to see these guys help him out since nobody can help him now. So that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing that I really liked about this movie was it really kept the John Wick feel that I really loved through the whole movie. I love the mutual respect that they have in this movie, which is the same thing in the last movie. It's like I was explaining before, the name of the movie is John Wick because that's all you need to know, that he's the freaking boogeyman. And that's all you need to know about it. You don't need anything else. Every time somebody mentions his name, they're automatically terrified. They're just like, ooh, this is a guy you don't want to mess with, unless he has a $7 million hit on him, apparently.
Right, yeah. which tends to turn heads.
It tends to turn heads. But even with that said, I feel like it really kept the same vein of feel. Even the thing that I really liked in the first movie is a lot of these action movies, they're just using like an unlimited amount of bullets. And this one, he reloads a lot, and he should. And so there's just stuff like that's pulled into this movie that's from the first movie that I really enjoyed. And so I just wanted to make sure I made a comment on that.
Nice.
I also really enjoyed the extended character development of John Wick. There's not a lot in this movie, but there's a lot of things about self-reflection in this movie about what he's doing. And one of the things that shows up is with Gianna, where she decides to kill herself. And before she does it, she specifically tells him, what would Helen feel about what you're doing? So it's almost like he's losing her, like he's like disrespecting or losing her memory, like in this way. You know what I mean? And
right.
So having that extra little bit of character development was really good. I like the Hall of Mirrors where they talk about self-reflection while he's doing all these things. I even enjoy the fact that the phone is broken. So like after he gets into the fight with like Common and he walks out and before he gets the call on the phone, he tries to take out his phone because we all know that from the first movie and some scenes in this movie, he uses his phone to kind of see his wife again. But it's broken now. So to me, I might be reading too far into it, but it seems like that's another aspect of him, like, he's like losing her in the process of what he's doing, right. And he's losing himself.
Yes. And especially with the fire.
Yes.
And the fact that, the house is gone and that the photos of her are gone.
Yes. So he's losing a lot of himself, like in this process. And it's so weird that like you get this action movie that's full of violence and it's awesome, but you have this like extra story element that's a part of him growing as a character. So it'd be really interesting to see the third movie and actually see it go full circle. You know what I mean? To just kind of just tie it all together, and hopefully his character just succeeds. The last thing I have is it's just kind of just a funny thing because I thoroughly enjoy that you actually, like, as cringeworthy as it was, and it was definitely cringeworthy, I am really happy that we actually got to see him kill 3 guys with a pencil, because they mentioned it in the first movie. They mentioned it in the first movie, and they mentioned it in the second movie, and then he does it in this movie towards the end, and I thought that was just a fun thing.
Well, all right, so the thing I will say is, for being an action movie, and you've touched on this, but there are visually it's stunning.
It is.
They pick all the right locations.
Yep.
They just they're in the Hall of Mirrors, they're in the Coliseum.
Yep.
They're just in all these, just even him going and getting his suit made. And then going to the Salmonier at the hotel there in Rome, and going through the different guns and everything that he's going to need for his mission.
Yep, it's cool.
I mean, everything is stylistically really cool, and,
which also carries on from the first movie, because that happened also. So it's really cool.
But I thought that they tuned it up enough for a big sequel, for a sequel that is going to make them some money.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was appropriately tuned up, and that it's going to be an over the top action,
yes,
because that's just how these movies are.
Yep.
But there were really little things like the fact that he and Common are trying to have a fight in a crowd, and that each time they get thrown down a flight of stairs or something, or they throw each other through a window.
Yep.
I couldn't believe when they were walking through that mall and they're continuing this fight, and they both are hiding silenced, like 22 pistols, and they're just firing at each other in between the crowd.
In between the crowds.
Just hear these soft pings, and they're just missing. Like one guy crosses a column, and the other one stops, and they're just like they're trying to kill each other any way possible on two different levels, and I started laughing, and it seemed like the rest of the theater did too.
Yeah, because it was
almost like a subtle thing, the way they were trying to kill each other.
And it was just so... It's like, again, this is the same kind of feel from the first John Wick, where there's all this ridiculously violent things happening, and they're trying to kill each other, but there's this comedy that's just thrown throughout the movie, just like them going down all those damn stairs. It was just,
the scene which might have been the thing that made me love this movie is the fact that they threw two stunt guys down all those stairs,
right?
And just pretty much did one continuous shot.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, these are two guys really trying to kill each other. This isn't like a visual effects thing.
Nope.
This is old school in Rome at night, in a dark alley, going down all these stone steps. And it's just an insane scene, the way that it's shot and edited.
Oh, yeah. It's fantastic.
When they're going down all those steps.
Yep.
So, I thought visually, the film's really cool looking, but then it also has all these really creative little things in it that you just don't normally see.
Yeah.
Especially in these kind of movies.
Action movies, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like that we got to see more of how the organizations work. And
I really enjoyed that too.
International feel.
Yep, I really enjoyed that, because another thing that we were curious about is how this coin system works, and they push more into this movie, and it's explained that this is a major organization that's a lot bigger than you think it is, and that was just like a really cool aspect.
It's bigger than New York.
Yep.
And that they have rules. These are assassins with rules, and so if a fight goes inside, the safe house inside one of the Continental Hotel, there are people there waiting to stop, because that's obviously a sanctuary.
Yep.
And there were just really cool things, and I even liked the introduction of the marker into this, because
I thought that was good too.
Having this new element come up where someone's trying to collect on a past debt, and you find out that that's the very debt that got him out of the game in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But John had to know that at some point he would be getting called back into service.
Yep.
And even if his wife was gone, even if his wife was alive, do things pan out differently?
Right.
If this marker gets called in the same way. It's just, it's kind of interesting, and what a cool thing, basically like having a life debt that you owe to someone, and, that they keep track of it. And, they have like an old school way of doing things, yet they use they use high-tech gear, to keep their assassins safe. Yep. But they have a very old school accounting system, and telephones, like their own network, probably so that things can't be traced.
Yep,
it's a hand operated network that has obviously been in place forever. Since
which is
telecommunications came online.
Such a good aspect to this movie. You're right.
There are just so many really cool things, and it's surprising, because a lot of thought went into every little scene and how and why things operate the way that they do. And I like that they show it and they let you come up with the conclusion. You know, they let you make that leap.
Yeah.
That, oh, this must have been in place since the very first, telephone operators came online, or whatever the case is.
Yep.
It just is a really cool blend of like, of old cinema with newer technology.
Yep, it's really cool,
and it's just rare to see in a movie like this again. So I think that's it for me as far as likes go, buddy.
All right, man. So let's go ahead and rate this movie then. So I think this movie is just as good, if not better, than the first one. And the first one was such a surprise. And I think it continues through this movie also. And so I'm going to say see it. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, I'm going to say see it too. I think it's definitely a guy's movie.
Oh yeah.
And just in that, I've never heard a girl ever talk about it. Well, but you hear guys talk about it all the time.
Yeah, you do.
Oh yeah, John, what? Like, well, why aren't there more movies like this? Well, I mean, they're really, the industry changed, but I mean, then you see how cool they do this one.
Yep.
And that artistically, it's a treasure. I'm probably gonna end up buying it.
I have the first John Wick, so
visually,
I'm gonna buy
I
this
think
one
it's
too.
much better.
Oh yeah.
Than the first movie for sure.
Yeah.
Everything's tuned up a notch, and it's weird that so many people can die in something so artistic.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. All right, man. Let's go ahead and sign out then.
Sounds good.
If anybody wants to contact us, we have our home on the web, halfpastpodcast.com.
Podcast. Like us on Facebook.
Rate us on iTunes and Google Play.
We are at Stitcher and Libsyn, Ian. Oh, was I not supposed to read that?
There you go, Jones.
Just one time, I want you to get through the last of the boilerplate stuff at the end. I want you to get through
the stuff we've done
without doing something.
Well over 50 times. Email us at halfpastcast@gmail.com. That's halfpastcast@gmail.com. Come on.
What?
You're lying.
Aren't you supposed to sign out?
You're lying.
You're supposed to cue me.
I said email us at halfpastcast@gmail.com. halfpastcast@gmail.com.
Oh, damn it. This thing didn't. All right. Tweet us at halfpastpodcast.
We've done this so many times.
Wow, that really went off the rails there. I thought I was at the end of my piece of paper.
Terrible.
The predator cut it off.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. Next week, this weekend, the Lego Batman movie came out, so we're going to do that one next week because there's nothing next week. So
everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome. I think Warner Animation Group's been doing a good job. So
wag.
We'll see how this one goes.
Right.
Anything else?
Nope. That's
all right. This is the Half Past Podcast. I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
See you next flick.
All right, that was a good one.
That was a good one.
My golden pipes in the back.